I get to speak around the state a fair amount, and it's always fascinating to do that. I love going and talking to groups. It's a little bit intimidating speaking in front of a crowd in your hometown where your mom grew up, and where you grew up, and where your mom and dad have friends, and where you're married to Debbie, who is from the Abercrombies, and everybody in town knows the Abercrombies. So y'all help me out here a little bit on that. I'm excited to be here. Maybe I won't take all 30 minutes unless I just get really wound up. I come from a long line of Baptist preachers, so sometimes it can get a little bit dangerous when you give me a podium, a suit, and chicken. So we're in trouble. But let me talk to you a little bit about downtowns. And that's what we're here about tonight, is to celebrate success stories in downtowns. And I'm going to spend some time talking about some of the investments and some of the dividends that have paid off for us as we've gone around, as we live and work and play and make our lives in this state. What does a city mean to us? And I've pulled together some statistics, so I hope y'all will excuse me if I read a little bit, because I'm not the world's best at remembering numbers. But investments in downtown development have paid some of those dividends. Since 1980, in cities of less than 50,000, which pretty much includes Douglasville, the Georgia Better Hometown and the Georgia Mainstreet cities have produced 9,700 plus new businesses. They have produced over 49,000 new jobs, and between the cities and the businesses have created an investment in those towns of more than $2.7 billion. That's a pretty darn good reason to support downtowns, and that's not just what it's about the heart and soul of cities, really. When you start looking at that downtown component, cities are important as the places where Georgians work, play, and shop, and they're also valuable in our quality of life. But more important than being just valuable as for us in our quality of life is that they're valuable because of the economic performance that happens in cities. The importance of cities is really not up for debate. Let me run through a few of these statistics that I've got for you here, and we can examine those a little bit more closely. Georgia cities make up just over 7% of the state's land area, yet they carry services for about 41% of the state's population. That's those that live there and those that visit in, come into the cities, commute in from the unincorporated areas, and all those visitors that come in and celebrate the great functions that happen at the plaza out here. 39% of the assessed property value in the state is located in cities. Remember, that's 7% of the surface area, 39% of the assessed value. Cities are home to 57% of the commercial property in the state. Cities are home to 46% of the industrial property in the state. Now, over the last couple of years, I'm not sure how these numbers have stacked up, because there hadn't been a whole lot of growth in the state, to be honest with you. But cities between 2000 and 2007 have grown at a rate of have grown 31%. The rest of the state has grown 18% from 2000 to 2007. Cities really make a difference in our lives. Estimates are that the population in Georgia cities increases during the daytime, which means people are coming here to work, by 34%. Now, Mr. Mayor, you still have to provide water for those people that are here. You still have to provide sewer, fire, and police protection for those people that are coming into those cities, plus your residents. So that 34% is a pretty substantial number, both daytime and for your resident population. Cities are where most of the jobs are. 64% of jobs in the state are located in city limits. You know, all those statistics talk about how the cities are true economic powerhouses in our state. You're providing that full spectrum of services to those 41% of the people that are there. Cities are literally where Georgia goes to work. All of that power is concentrated in a very small fraction of the state. But is all that power enough? And Marcia mentioned earlier, she talked a little bit about some of the initiatives that are going on to help strengthen those cities. This year, the Georgia Municipal Association and the Georgia Cities Foundation put together a task force on which I serve, which is working on ways to make cities more effective and more potent creators of wealth. Sometimes we don't think of our cities as creators of wealth, but Mr. Mayor, I suspect that if you walk around town and you look at the services that are provided and talk to those business owners, downtown Douglasville is a creator of wealth. The task force's recommendations, and I'll talk a little bit about those, focus on some specific points. You can find their full report at the Georgia Municipal Association's website in a sidebar titled Rise to Excellence, and it's the framework for the recommendations. So I'll run through some of those. First off, we've got to start with redefine. We're going to redefine and refocus the perception and the physical footprint of what we think of as downtowns to support sustained economic growth and to foster public-private partnerships. We're going to redefine how local, state, and business leaders view downtowns. Downtown development is traditionally focused on, Ms. Dot, historic preservation. But leaders also have to embrace the new. We can't just focus on historic preservation. There has to be a balance. We have to have new development in cities to go along with that historic preservation. We need to redefine how we look at cities to make sure that the downtowns are looked at as a larger part of our communities and really a larger part of our community fabric. The goal has to be a plan to nurture and market downtown as the heart of the community. I'm going to say there must be a statewide strategy and local vision to bring people and transactional commerce downtown. Now, I talk about statewide strategy. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But one of the challenges I think that a lot of cities face is that they tend to focus and look at the state for leadership and guidance. Leadership is critical. But priorities can change at the state level. As we've seen, budgets can change at the state level, as we've seen. What will not change is your commitment at the local level. And that's where a lot of the focus has to be, is on the local level. We need to redefine the downtown footprint, make it significantly larger than the Mainstreet program. Downtown is larger than Mainstreet Douglasville. Sometimes we forget that. It needs to embrace the incoming corridors. It needs to embrace parks, walking trails, schools, churches, neighboring residential areas. Downtowns need to be looking outward and upward to maximize that infrastructure investment. Not just filling the first floor retail space or creating niche second floor residential space. The new economic drivers, we need to redefine what those new economic drivers are and reach out to capture the intellectual capital that we have around us. Whether it's in some communities, it might be the university, it might be our technical colleges, it might be the healthcare systems, it might be the technology businesses that are located in your area. But we've got to figure out ways to reach out and tap into that intellectual capital. Invest. We've got to figure out ways to invest in our downtowns. We've got to invest in the broad leadership base of downtowns to promote sustained economic growth and to foster that public-private partnership. We've got to invest in sustained planning and training and technical assistance to build local capacity. We've got to invest in we've got to make sure that we're taking care of the economic needs, and state budget priorities, as I said, will always change. Local leadership is a critical component to having a successful city and successful plans. One of the other investment initiatives out of this plan will be to build a new downtown capacity building partnership. And it'll have things like facilitation and training of new downtown experts, training a broader, more diverse leadership base, to assist with planning and visioning. It will help promote responsible development and regulations, and will help fund critical expertise to jumpstart implementation. Strengthen your downtown development authorities. We need to expand their responsibilities and empower them with that entrepreneurial energy to act as developer, equity partners in some cases, help with the capture and placement of tax credits, or capitalizing on new financial structures. A couple of the ideas that are floating around, and I suspect you may see them pop up at the General Assembly in the next session, are something to do with transferable state income tax credits for investments in downtowns. Also, one of the ideas that's floating around is the creation of a municipal bond bank to help finance downtown projects. We need to stop depending so much on the state and figure out ways to tap into those private funds out there. We're here tonight to celebrate Douglasville and success in Douglasville, but don't think the work's done here. You honorees tonight have done a terrific job. But we've got roughly 31,000 people here in Douglasville. We've got a 13% unemployment rate. We need to figure out a way to put our folks in Douglasville back to work. Now, I'm going to show something that we use at Georgia Power. This is what we call our community and economic development pyramid, and we've developed this through the years. It was actually, and John will appreciate this. Do you remember Jack Talley? Jack Talley was the vice president of our organization several years ago, and the legend is that Jack Talley came up with this pyramid on the back of a cocktail napkin one night, and if you knew Jack Talley, that certainly is more likely true than not. But as you see, I talked about leadership earlier. Leadership is the foundation of all that's going to happen good in a city. And that's what you folks are here tonight. From that leadership, you can develop your strategies. You can develop those services that provide the infrastructure. You can provide the infrastructure if you know where you're going. Everybody always wants to start up here at Rewards. They want to sell that building out here on Main Street. They want to get that old vacant building up and running. They want to clear off that lot down at the end of Main Street and have it turned into a productive park. They want to sell somebody to come in and buy that building. I'm sorry to tell you, no matter how bad you want it, it doesn't work. You won't get there until you start here. Anybody familiar with the city of Smyrna? Smyrna has been awarded the Urban Land Institute's one of their most prestigious awards for redevelopment of a downtown. It was about 8 or 9 years ago when they received that award. The challenge there is that everybody wants to be there and celebrate when they get that award. What happened, though, in Smyrna is that the leadership decided 25 years before then that they had a vision and they had a direction that they were going to go. Community development is a long-term, hard, kind of gut-wrenching, grinding business. They developed a strategy. And not only did they develop it, they actually decided to implement it. And they pressed forward with it for 20 years. They developed all the services. They developed all the buildings down there. They got rid of the old stuff that wasn't useful. that nobody was using. They went into making sure that what they had went to where they wanted to be. Now we kind of think about this, and you heard earlier I was the community development manager. All this hard, non-glorious work down here is what we think of as community development. The glorious work is what my partner Tal Wright does. They're the ones that get to show up and bring that new business in, and you know, the NCRs of the world and the Porsches that's going to locate down near the airport in Atlanta, and they get to show those sites that all these community developers have worked on all those years, and hopefully they'll sell those, and they will bring in those tax dollars that we're all looking for, and they'll bring in those jobs so that those 13% of people can go to work. Let me tell you a little bit about Milledgeville. Anybody been to Milledgeville? Gorgeous little town. Milledgeville's having some problems these days. You know, the state hospital's closed down. They've got a couple of prisons closed down. That's a big part of their business. Remember that part I said about state budget priorities change? Go talk to the folks in Milledgeville. They know about state budget priorities changing. But let me tell you about them. They're one of our more successful Main Street communities. They have dedicated leadership focused on downtown development. Leadership from both public, that's the city, and the private sector. Their strategy, and remember, this is their strategy. This isn't Georgia Power's strategy. This isn't the Department of Community Affairs strategy. This isn't Georgia Municipal Association strategy. This is the strategy developed in Milledgeville for Milledgeville. Their strategy was to focus on collaboration with Georgia College and State University, which is basically located right there in downtown Milledgeville. GCSU started their long-range plan, shared their long-range plan with the city and the private sector. And basically what happened was that the city and the business community decided, great ideas, let's see if we can't capitalize on that. Basically, they developed their plan from the university's plan. Years ago, back in the 80s, doesn't seem like the 80s is that long ago, does it, Deb? Back in the 80s, it really wasn't the case. In the 80s, Milledgeville looked pretty bad. A lot of empty buildings, a lot of vacant retail, a lot of vacant spaces. Kind of something like what I sort of remember here in Douglasville. This was not the case today. Where there were a significant number of empty buildings in downtown, see if any of this sounds familiar. There were a lot of empty buildings as all commercial had moved out to the mall and north along Highway 441 corridor. Today, there are restaurants and there's retail in downtown and there's almost no empty buildings, even with all of those changes that they've made at the state. The downtown group successfully worked with the university, with the Georgia Technology Authority, with the Knight Foundation, and they developed something even called the Digital Bridges. That's a business incubator and a technology training center in downtown. Digital Bridges provides a conference center, software, technology training, and all kinds of services to meet the needs of Baldwin County's businesses and citizens. The university has renovated several properties downtown, but more importantly, private businesses renovated a lot of those businesses downtown. There are a number of lofts downtown. Expand your ideas about your downtown development. Residential lofts. All of them are full. They're actually developing putting together another planned development of lofts. You know, what a success story. About a year ago, we were sitting around at our house here in Douglasville. Gathered together as a family, my daughter, my son, their spouses, our grandson. I'll get lots of points for mentioning my grandson. Our grandson was there, and our daughter was, we had an old chest in our basement. Our daughter decided she was going to paint that and turn it into a toy chest for our grandson. And we sat around for a couple of hours talking about what quote she was going to put on that toy box. And I'll give you some of the leading contenders. Here's an anonymous quote. It says, "Imagination is where dreams begin." I won't make you do your Yoda voice, Debbie. But truly wonderful the mind of a child is. Another, "We are the music makers. We are the dreamers of dreams." Anybody recognize that one? It's the eminent philosopher Willy Wonka. Dr. Seuss, "Today you are you, and that is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you." Also, Dr. Seuss, "A person's a person no matter how small." Then one of Debbie's favorite children authors, Patti Lovell. We had two quotes from her. "Walk as proudly as you can, and the world will look up to you. And sing out clear and strong, and the world will cry tears of joy." I'm really going to score points now. Meet Jack. That's the most important thing that we have here today. But you can see, "We are the music makers. We are the dreamers of dreams" was the winner. Now, I can also tell you that since that toy box was painted, I've spent quite a bit of time at my daughter's house, as you grandparents might understand. They're up in Sneads Ferry, North Carolina, so we don't get to go often, but we get to go for a long time, and I really get to look at that toy box. And the more I've thought about that saying, actually the more we've thought about that saying as a family, the more it's kind of become part of our family song. Now let me tell you about a young boy that grew up in Munich, Germany. Not a very precocious youngster. Frankly, pretty slow. As a matter of fact, he didn't learn to speak till he was almost 4. He was always daydreaming. As a matter of fact, this young man, clearly they were not very politically correct in Munich in those days. He was known, because he was so slow, as the dopey one. He got kicked out of school. He finally graduated from school at age 17. But he couldn't get into the university of his choice. So he wound up being accepted into a 4-year mathematics and teaching program at Polytechnic in Zurich, Switzerland. Now, after graduation from Polytechnic, as you heard me say, mathematics and teaching, he tried everywhere to get a teaching job. He simply could not find one. He sent letters. He called on people. He was constantly looking for a job, always being turned down, always getting rejected. It's a tough life for a slow one. After a while, a friend's father decided to help him out, and he got him a government job there in Zurich. He accepted that job and went to work. But the dopey one was still a dreamer, still a daydreamer. While working at his job in the patent office, the dopey one was still daydreaming, still imagining. He dreamed about riding in an elevator alongside a beam of light. That daydreaming, that imagination, led to the development of the general theory of relativity. In what became known later as the miracle year, Albert Einstein published 3 major theorems and essentially created the field of modern physics. We live today in a dream world created by the imagination and the vision of Albert Einstein and his willingness to produce the reality of those dreams. Einstein was a music maker. When I walked in here this evening, I took a look around my hometown. I looked over at Mr. Boggs' old drugstore, a store where my dad was able to get medicine for my sister in the middle of the night because Mr. Boggs knew how important it was to a dad to take care of his little girl. Only today, it's not B&W drugs. You know, they went in and they ripped the wood out of B&W. They gutted the store where so many people had come to get well. Someone sinister showed up in town. Someone with crazy ideas. Someone with a crazy imagination. Someone with a dream. Some crazy dreamer looked at an old, dilapidated building and saw a future. That dreamer turned the wood from B&W into tables and chairs and a bar. Oh, Lord, don't tell Mary. I'm thinking about dreamers and music makers. I think about the dreams that led to the Irish Bread Pub. I think about the lives that are still intertwined with that old building. You know, people go to the pub today and they laugh and they meet and they eat. They enjoy life. People also go there to work. And I'm thinking of a conversation with a young girl working there as a waitress, making money so she can go to school. I think about the way the dreams of that young girl are being built inside the dreams, the music that has become the pub. The way a single music maker can build to an orchestra playing a symphony. I started the evening talking about statistics, talking about the technical plans to boost downtowns. I talked about economic and community development. But what I hope you remember, what I hope you celebrate, are the dreamers and the music makers. Sometimes we can let the passion for our work get lost in the dismal details. And I admire all of you here this evening. I count myself lucky to be in the presence of such music makers. People that take risks, dreamers that build their dreams, are the ones that I want to celebrate here tonight. Dreamers that are doers are the builders of the world. I really appreciate y'all letting me come here tonight, and I hope you have a great evening.